It's October 24th, 2015. We're at Bobby Dodd Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Florida State and Georgia Tech are tied at 16, but the 9th-ranked Seminoles are looking to end it with a 56-yard field goal. The Yellow Jackets are 2-5. Florida State hasn't lost a regular season game since 2012. And yet, this is a huge moment. It captures what makes college football so incredible. One team with national title hopes, another hoping to prove they're more than just a losing record. To appreciate what comes next, let's remember how we got here. Let's rewind. This episode of Rewinder is presented by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Push button, get mortgage. On paper, it's a little surprising that Florida State hasn't already put this game away. FSU is a top 10 team, they've won 28 straight games against ACC opponents, and they haven't lost a regular season game since November 2012. Plus, they've got Jimbo. After winning a ring as Saban's offensive coordinator at LSU, Fisher joined Bobby Bowden's staff in 2007. Bowden had led the Seminoles since 1976, but the success they had at the start of the BCS era felt like an eternity ago as their offense slipped well behind the rest of the ACC. That changed under Fisher. So much so that when Bowden hung it up after his 37th season, Jimbo filled his shoes. He brought with him the lessons learned under Saban, bolstering a defensive staff in hopes of catching up with the offense. By 2012, it was paying off. FSU lost to NC State and number 6 Florida, but had their first double-digit win season since 2003. A season later, they completely took over. With freshman Jameis Winston at quarterback, offensive weapons like Kelvin Benjamin and Devonta Freeman, a defense that surrendered just 12 points per game thanks to guys like Telvin Smith, LaMarcus Joyner, and Timmy Jernigan, Florida State tore up the rest of 2013. Their offense never missed a beat, putting up 63 in a shutout of 25th-ranked Maryland, then followed that up by destroying number 3 Clemson with similar ease. The closest anyone got was in the national championship, when the Seminoles faced off against Auburn. But even aided by stolen play calls, the Tigers couldn't best Jimbo's squad. Their undefeated 2013 was followed up by an undefeated 2014. Before a New Year's Day blowout by Oregon derailed their quest for back-to-back championships. And although Winston, Freeman, Benjamin, Smith, Joyner, Jernigan, plus a whole mess of others had left for the NFL, the Seminoles entered the 2015 season pretty well stocked. Everett Golson took over at quarterback after transferring from Notre Dame. But the star of the show, and arguably the reason they were undefeated through the first half of the season, was sophomore running back Dalvin Cook. As a freshman in 2014, he split carries with senior Carlos Williams, but did much more with his share. He followed up a 1,000-yard season by nearly matching that total through just 6 games in 2015. He was running for nearly 9 yards per attempt, and heading into the matchup with Georgia Tech, his 10 rushing scores on average covered 41 yards apiece. Tonight, while it hurt that average, Cook scored the game's first touchdown, then crossed the 1,000-yard mark for the season in just his 7th game. He is well on the way to shattering Work Done's school record, and more importantly, has helped get the Seminoles in position to win it here. While that might not seem super impressive given just 16 points against a 2-5 team, this is actually a much tougher test than Tech's record makes it seem. Each of the previous 2 times these schools have faced off, it's been for the ACC championship. Although FSU won both, they were close contests that saw Tech battling back in the 4th to make them one-score games. The most recent of those was just last season, when the Yellow Jackets did their best to threaten Jimbo's playoff spot. While they came up short, Tech finished the year as an 11-win team, comfortably beating Mississippi State in the Orange Bowl. Because of that, for the first time since 2010, they were ranked heading into the season. Head coach Paul Johnson continued to prove his offense was capable of making them a pain to deal with. And once they got going, it was hard to stop. They more than justified the preseason rank in their first 2 games. But a trip to top 10 Notre Dame began their derailment. Cracks that had been there during the preseason only got bigger. Most of their top skill positions had either graduated or got injured, and their quarterback, who was coming off a stellar year, came down to earth. Basically, if things started to go wrong, then they could go really wrong. The comebacks and close wins that defined them in 2014 weren't there on their 5-game losing streak that began in South Bend. Aside from a blowout by Clemson, they did stay competitive in each game, just didn't have the result bounce their way. That included a last-second loss 1 week before this matchup with Florida State, when Pitt hit a 56-yard field goal in the closing seconds for the win. And now, because fate is cruel, FSU is lining up for a 56-yarder that would again spoil everything Tech has done. Although they only have 16 points to show for their efforts, Tech has actually done a lot more than what that number shows. In part, because they've also done a lot of bad. So that Cook touchdown from earlier, that was essentially a gift from the Yellow Jackets. Confusion in the backfield led to Justin Thomas throwing one that was easily picked by LaMarcus Brutus.
That play imploded from the beginning. Brutus with the pick, high stepping it down the sideline.
It was the second pick for Thomas, although the first was a little less egregious and more so just an incredible effort by Josh Sweat. Those two plays gave FSU their first 10 points of the game. Tech got on board thanks to a long Harrison Butker field goal, but their offense hadn't shown much reason to believe they could claw out of the hole. The fun thing about Tech's offense, though, is shit can kinda happen at any time. You feel like you're watching the same short gain again and again, and then all of a sudden...
On the loose, Justin Thomas! Just in time, touchdown!
FSU notched another field goal to make it a 6-point game at half, but Thomas's touchdown run seemed to swing momentum just enough for Tech. In the third quarter, they hung onto the ball for over 12 minutes, and although they only got 3 points out of it, it was enough to cut the deficit in half. Then, with 8 to play, it was their defense who stepped up to keep their hopes alive. FSU had marched down the field, got 10 yards from the end zone, and then...
Into the end zone, popped up, juggled, intercepted!
Not only had they forced Golson's first interception as a Seminole, it was the first turnover committed by Florida State's offense all season. Although it didn't lead to points, the teams swapped punts and Tech had one more chance to keep the game going. They got the ball at their own 37 with 4:25 to play, but were quickly faced with 4th down. Needing 5 yards for Georgia Tech, that's a slightly scary proposition. Justin Thomas was never really asked to throw the ball much. He averaged just 15 pass attempts per game entering tonight, and on his career, he's never been the most accurate passer. As evidenced in the first half, that hadn't kept him from being a weapon with his legs, but tonight he hardly used his arm. Before this 4th down, he had thrown the ball just 9 times against Florida State, completing 3 to his team, 2 to his opponent. So right here, no one expected this.
They're gonna throw. Thomas has a man open. First down!
It was arguably the biggest play of the night when they needed it most. From there, Tech was more than comfortable killing clock and gaining 5 yards to put Butker in position to tie it up. Georgia Tech had done just enough to stay in the game, a statement that's also true for most of their 5-game losing streak. But if they have any hope to break that streak, well...
Wait, sorry, can you go back a bit? Something caught my eye.
Yeah, okay, watch this guy. He's on the line, then he backs up about 5 yards and just chills there. So, okay, his name is Lance Austin. He's a sophomore DB and actually has a twin brother, Lawrence, also on the team. He didn't get a ton of action his first year, appearing in just 5 games and finishing with 10 tackles. So far this year, it's been more of the same, with this being his 5th game and he's only been credited with 3 stops. That said, despite the lack of playing time, he and his brother have done enough to receive one hell of a comparison from Tech coaches. But through his sophomore year, as Lance has primarily worked in a special teams capacity, the only shout out he's gotten for his play has been the sort you don't want. Okay, so maybe I got excited for nothing, but still, it all comes down to this. a 56-yard field goal, which is a huge ask for anyone. But if any school should feel confident at this range, it's FSU and their golden-legged Roberto Aguayo. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, he's a college kicker, that's a position only relied on for Twitter goofs. But Aguayo is different. During FSU's national championship season, he was automatic. He was perfect on all 94 of his extra point attempts, which is just absurd, and he only missed a single field goal. Only Keenan Reynolds and Capri Bibbs scored more points in the NCAA that year than Aguayo, both needing 30 rushing touchdown seasons to do so. He easily claimed the Lou Groza Award as a freshman, and in his sophomore year was a consensus All-American. Now, on top of all that, he had proved to be especially clutch. In his career, he hadn't missed a kick during the fourth quarter. Thanks to the offense putting games away early though, only one of those has had to serve as the game winner. And it came from just 26 yards out against Boston College. So even with all the accolades already decorating Aguayo, hitting this would just check one more box and help solidify his place as college's best kicker. It would give Florida State 29 straight wins against ACC opponents, a mark that would tie their own record set in the 90s. It would keep their quest for a third straight unbeaten regular season alive. And it would be one more cruel twist of the knife lodged in Georgia Tech this year. The Yellow Jackets are left praying for a miracle and not a second straight week losing by a last-second 56-yard field goal. While they've fallen far from their 11-win season a year ago, they haven't backed down tonight. And if they can derail Florida State's playoff chances, they'd be doing so in front of their home crowd on homecoming weekend. It comes down to one last snap. Welcome to a moment in history.
Blocked, snuffed, rubbed out, erased. And Georgia Tech with an opportunity. Austin still on his feet. One man. You can't believe what just happened. What a time to be alive.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't checked out our rewinder of Michael Crabtree's catch against Texas, well, here you go. Or to know more about Georgia Tech, watch their beef history with Georgia. Subscribe to SB Nation, and we'll see you soon.